Chapter 36. Almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you, Anne Lamott. Patients in the MHU. It's a privacy breach to talk about them, and God knows I didn't need to be as bad as those who breached my privacy. I will go into detail of people who became friends without any physical detail of their appearance. A young girl who never spoke, an older guy who looked like he might be intellectually impaired, a small Koori guy who wore leather jackets, boots and sunglasses all the time, a woman who quietly read a book, a white male in his 30s who seemed very out of place. This last one had dark hair, was very relaxed and was under no mental stress. The Koori guy and the young woman, though both relaxed, you could feel they had tension in them because they were genuine mental health sufferers. This male didn't have any of that. He had a phone and was using it. This gave me more anxiety. Was he able to pin my location, take pics of me in here at my most vulnerable? Every new place I went into was compromised. No wonder I worried that my brother knew that I was going to be kidnapped by gangsters in here. Whatever your worries and fears are in a MHU, there's no point in sharing them because the staff will just put that down to you being manic. It's a strike against your name, if anything. So I didn't say anything. I just tried to be brave and take what comes. Obviously, if I woke up during a kidnapping attempt, I'd be far from quiet. I had to wait to see if that would be an eventuation. I hadn't ordered dinner, so I ate someone else's that they gave me. I got a menu for tomorrow and thus began the whole menu scheme. Another nurse sat with me with the menu and explained that I have to order more food than I needed because it would go to other patients. I really couldn't understand the logic of this, but I didn't question it. After I'd filled out what I wanted, she sat to and filled out a lot of other options. What a weird place. There was some dodgy shit with getting a drink of water too. They gave me a milkshake cup of cold water and told me to come ask them whenever I needed more. This was Deborah. She said that the ice machine was broken. I said I didn't need ice water. Tap water was fine. She said, well, there's cordial, there's juice. I said I just wanted plain water. They were really hard to raise to get any damn water at all, let alone iced water or cordial. I worked out that I could fill my cup in the bathroom, so that's what I did in the whole 3 or 4 days I was on observation side. I can't remember how long. The days all blend into one. I saw the psychiatrist on this day. She was an Indian woman who never blinked. I didn't like her vibe. There was a really nice young Indian woman with her who seemed to either be an assistant or another psych. She had kindness in her eyes. I honestly believe the main psych who did all the talking was part of the human experiment. I told her the whole story nonetheless. At one stage she said something about, why does it matter if they kidnap you, in relation to the fact that I hadn't cared if the police shot me. I had to explain to her that death by bullet was better than death by rape and torture in some room that's live streamed onto the dark web. She seemed to understand. As I sobbed through my story and again had a breathless panic attack, Deborah, the nurse who'd brought me here, looked quite upset. I didn't take this as a good sign. I interpreted it as, she knows I'm in a human Pokemon game and doesn't agree with it, but can do nothing. Therefore, her sympathy was actually guilt. The psych suggested I switch over to voluntary admission. I didn't need to be sectioned anymore. This didn't mean that I could leave though, and it also made me nervous that someone could kidnap me and it would look like I went voluntarily. She prescribed me an antipsychotic called Seroquel. She also prescribed Lexapro, which I'd said I'd used before. The psych didn't have any explanations or solutions for my psychotic episode. She just prescribed me drugs. She did say that I probably did have bad things happen to me in Wirra, and this was a learning experience. She also said that because I was living in my van, it caused stress and a breakdown, which was an explanation of sorts for the psychotic episode that I was trying to pretend that I was going through. At no point did she, or anyone I'd shared my story with so far, really listen to what I was saying and question whether I was, indeed, a victim of a very elaborate stalking scheme, that I was really hunted by gangsters who were paid to kidnap me. No one took it seriously. I was just a mental health patient. My mother rang at one stage. I don't remember the entire conversation, but she was coming down to stay in Taree. I was relieved for lots of reasons that I didn't expect, but particularly because I had no clothes. The nurses had bought me t shirts that weren't very long, a pair of long black tights with holes down the inner thighs all the way up to the hips. I really didn't want to wear those, they were too revealing. I wore them though, with a towel wrapped around me. Nurse Deborah asked me why I had a towel, and I said I didn't like wearing just tights. She said, "Oh, you're self conscious." I think I tried to explain to her that I was terrified of getting raped, probably had been raped. This was a mixed unit, plus there were dodgy male nurses and security guards. So, no, I wasn't self conscious. I was just sensible. That was another weird thing from the nurses. My mother also told me that Stuart had organised a mate of his to transport my van to Caneville. I really did not want this for two reasons. One was the bike in the back could fall over since it had once before on the back of a transport truck. And two, I didn't fully trust my brother. I thought if he got rid of my van, then I could more easily get snatched from the hospital because the cops no longer had my keys. I had to keep the keys in my property at the cop shop. Even in here, they'd be compromisable. Patience. The young woman who was reading was easy to talk to. She said she was a vet and talked about breaking up with her boyfriend who friend zoned her. She said he was coming in to visit her and was gushing about him. I kind of warned her that she might want to protect herself from being used by him. Me, ever suspicious of males who want the sex but not the relationship. I know I chose males who wanted the sex, not the relationship, but that was different. There was no telling her though. I later found out from the Corey guy, Jamie, that she told him she did a different job, worked in a bank or something. So she was delusional. You can never tell with mental health patients. The more calm and normal seeming they are, the more likely they believe the lies they're telling you. A day or two later, when she was discharged, she was meeting with Nurse Deborah for her aftercare plan. Deborah said to her, "So you're not going to let boys tell you that you're beautiful and send pictures of yourself," or something to that effect. The woman shook her head and screwed up her face in disgust. "Oh no, I'm not going to do that." I felt this was a direct shot at me. My meds either weren't working or I was very firmly trapped in this other dimension. Or it was really happening and Deborah believed that the reason for my porn presence in the human Pokemon game was because I'd let males tell me I was beautiful and send them pics. I was a sexual being who liked sexting. No one had to groom me. In a normal world, there's nothing wrong with doing cheeky shit like this. We live in an ultra conservative world where young males are deeply ashamed of sex, so they all carry on like sex pest perverted weirdos. Jamie. He was the same age as me and we had connected on that. He was an ex guitar player in a band in Adelaide and had gone to the Indigenous School of Arts over there. He had his life on track at one stage. He gave me good info on Seroquel that he'd been taking for 20 years. More info than the psychs or nurses had given me. Jamie was the most together person there. They let him go over to the open side, and I expressed regret that he was going over there because he was good company. One night I said to him, "I think they're going to come for me tonight." I think it was the first night that I necked my Seroquel. He said, "Well, good luck, stay strong." It was quite light-hearted, but I appreciated it. He knew that you had to humour these fears because he had them himself. Another time he said, "If they were going to get you, they would have by now." I appreciated this too. My mother came one morning. She expressed delight at my haircut and said it made me look cute. I took this all the wrong way and said I couldn't care less how I looked. She was just trying to be complimentary and bright, but I didn't think it was the time or place. I was still very low. It's not her style to be heavy and serious, even though it was a heavy, serious situation. I arced up at her a few times. Family disjointedness, etc. I don't know why I felt I needed to do that, but I did. While I was talking to her, Jamie came barging into the common room from the open side with all his stuff and white tribal face paint on. He said that the tall young male on the other side had said he was going to kill him. I'd seen this guy through the blinds and had a bad feeling about him too. Poor Jamie. I believed him even if he was hearing things. Seeing it in another patient really drove home how similarly my symptoms manifest. In the coming days, I would work very hard on my mother to get her to come in the van with me and we'd drive it up north together. She could even drive it out on the highway. My reasoning was I really wasn't sure when I'd do a road trip again. This might be the last one. And I was just too terrified to go into an airport full of people. Typically, my mother said I should wear a hat to cover my hair. Yes, mother, that was absolutely at the top of my priorities, my unstylistic haircut. What happened to, oh, it looks cute on you, when she'd first arrived and seen my roughly shaved head? Again, this wasn't the thing I needed assurance over, whether I looked cute. She was no poker player, my mother. She hated my hair and had to convince herself that I looked cute. It wasn't about convincing me that I looked cute. I eventually convinced her with a lot of playing on my mental health problems. I did not care. My van was mine and I really couldn't wait to be reunited with it. But not just us. I was so fucking nervous about ever being alone on the road again. At night, I was still paranoid that they'd come take me out of my room by wheeling my bed somewhere, then gang raping me. I put my nighttime Seroquel under my tongue and spat it out later. I did this 2 nights running. I still slept all night because I was exhausted, but I felt I'd wake up if the bastards moved me. It didn't help that a nurse comes and shines a torch in your eyes to check if you're asleep. I stirred whenever they did this. I figured that this would stop them from taking me. I wasn't asleep. On the 3rd night of this, I was given meds in the common room. I had no choice but to swallow them. I felt a creeping dread. This was the night that I said to Jamie that they would take me. 2 things made me paranoid about gang rape. The bitch-hipped security guard was walking around the yard, concrete area with high walls and windows like a prison yard that we access for exercise and to have more privacy with the psych. He said some pleasantry to me. I gave him some cold reply. I figured he was doing that shit that drug rapists do. They talk to you to see if you remember anything about them. And they are smugly satisfied if you don't. Fucking idiot. I was onto him. I just didn't react with fear because I've been through drug gang rape before. They are the ones who should be fearful, not me. I'd love to have replied, so you're a pencil-dicked mob, aren't you? The rape didn't hurt at all. You'd be aware how small everyone's dicks are because you were there, perving on them, weren't you, you fucking homo? Yes, it's not nice to use homo, but someone like him would be mortally offended, so it's okay. The other thing I'd done was a urine test. I did this on the first day in the ER, and it had come back with a possible urinary tract infection. I definitely got these from sex. I'm thinking about the timing of it now. It was before the planned gang rape in the ER, so I must have got it from living in my clothes for 3 days in sweltering heat. I was all a blur of confusion, paranoia, and hypervigilance, which was making me exhausted. It sucked. A new patient came in, a Koori woman in her 30s, very beautiful. I wanted to get to know her, but I was also a little scared of her. I'm fearfully respectful of what capable fighters Indigenous women are, even the lightweights like this one. I stand them way more than male fighters. They have more reasons to be pissed off with society than men, and more reasons than me. I would back down and take the hit if it came to that. Mel. We ended up chatting and it was a wild conversation. We talked of telepathy and of hearing what people are thinking. She told me she heard me think, what a beautiful woman, I'm going to be friends with her. She wasn't wrong, but she didn't pick up on the bit where I hoped she wasn't scrappy. Mel was very animated with delusions of grandeur that didn't seem like that to me at the time. I was still delusional myself, so she just made complete sense. I remember one evening, me, Mel, and Jamie were all walking around the yard, talking nature and skies and things. I so loved listening to their native wisdom, beliefs, and stories. I was relieved to be accepted by them. Mental health units are a kind of prison after all, and a co-ed one at that. You really had to get on with the top dog, and Mel was certainly that. Jamie was less so, he just kept to himself, but he opened up to me and I was glad of that. My mother came in another day while Mel was sitting in the common room. I think we were making Christmas decorations with an activities officer who was also an occupational therapist. She was the nicest, most normal person I'd spoken to. Jamie had told me that the nurses fuck with your head. He said they did this to see if you arced up over not getting what you'd requested. For example, the weird water situation. Normally, I would consider his opinion as that of a middle aged male conspiracy theorist that I'd come across too many times on the outside, but I took him seriously. I was now a conspiracy theorist myself, and it made sense. I even told my mother this later on, and she took it seriously too. Interesting, but not pleasant to go through. On this day, when my mother left, she gave Mel a hug too. It was funny how Mel wrapped my mother around her finger. I'm glad my mother did this, relieved she held no judgment over any of these people. My people, as it were. The next morning, I was in the common room by myself doing the crosswords I was so into. That and adult colouring pictures were keeping me sane. Mel came out of her room looking really rough. She went and stood at the door that we all had to stand in front of from time to time to get the nurses' attention, even though they ignored us and it was no use, yelling for some coffee. No one was answering her, so she fully arced up, pacing up and down the corridor, yelling at the top of her voice. She said, "All this fuss over some fucking pussy." My heart dropped. That would be about me. So Mel was in here trying to get near me, and the act had worn off because she wasn't in control of her secret. I walked to her and said, "Mel, they won't let you over to the other side if you do that." She kept yelling and pacing. I wasn't nervous that she'd hurt me. After all, I'd been in a women's prison when an inmate beat up another. The officer had dragged the beaten woman out of there and left us teachers in there with the scrapping inmate. She paced around us like a caged tiger but didn't hurt any of us. Her beef wasn't with us, it was jealousy about her girlfriend talking to the one she'd beaten. Like I said, Indigenous girls can throw a punch that works. Eventually someone came in and calmed her down. I saw the psych later that day and my mother sat in on the meeting. It was all stuff about my care when I left there, my mother making sure that the New South Wales health info would transfer over to Queensland Health. We'd already discussed that I'd go with her to the little town. We'd already discussed that I'd go with her to Caneville, the town I'd grown up in. I'd stayed with my parents a year or two before while driving trucks with a local sugarcane harvester contractor. It didn't work out. My mother was very cruel and passive-aggressive to me. It drove me mad and drove me to rent a long, empty shop in the main street and live in that. No shower, just a toilet, but I made it work. It was way better than being around my parents. I'd told the psych all about my family difficulties, my mother's narcissistic personality disorder. When my mother left us to it, the psych mentioned this. I said I really had no choice. I didn't want to go back to living in my van and waiting for the lease on my rented out apartment to end. She said it might actually be good, and I kind of agreed as my mother was showing some understanding of how hard this had been for me. I mentioned how unsettling the thing with Mel had been this morning. She said something interesting. "You'll have a lot of empathy and that can upset you. Maybe you need to protect yourself more. In other words, have less empathy." I thought, yes, that definitely applies to you, lady who barely blinks. I'm not a robot, though. I can't help but have empathy and will continue to have. But I also made a mental note to have less to do with Mel, purely for the reasons that I may still be hunted and she may be here to gain access to me. Funnily enough, I didn't feel that from Jamie. The nurse that sat in on the session, Cheryl, was African. I liked her a lot. I said something about how I really needed to find my tribe to be happy. Cheryl laughed to herself a little. I guess it was the reference to tribe. I felt a bit guilty about that. But a little further on in the conversation, I said, "I just want to be able to go out and walk around in public anonymously. Everyone else gets to do that. Why can't I?" It was Cheryl's turn to look a little guilty. I wasn't having a go at her. I just wanted them both to realize that this is a fucking hard thing to live with. I certainly did feel that when a new patient came in.